welcome back. Congressman Mark Pocan on the line with us, and David in Canterbury, Connecticut. You are on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hey, Congressman, thanks for taking my call. We have a congressman on here, Joe Courtney, who was procured 2 nuclear submarines down in Groton, and his shtick is when he comes into the district, he's 2 Sub Joe, and he passes out medals to old veterans that didn't get their medals, which is okay. But it just seems to be such nonsense. My question is this: I've tried to nail him down on arms sales to Yemen and to Saudi Arabia. It started in 2015 with the guided missiles and terrible consequences that came from that. And he admitted to me that they have 90 days. Is he the ranking Democratic member on the House Armed Services Committee?
David, I'd have to look. I know I used to serve with him on education and workforce, and he actually, was very articulate around issues of labor, specifically around in healthcare, dealing with some issues around that. But let me find out, and we'll get back in this program if he is. I just don't know offhand.
Okay. All right. David? Okay. Thank you, David. Let's see here. Cindy, watching Free Speech TV on DirecTV in Euclid, Ohio. Cindy, you're on with Congressman Pocan.
Yes, Congressman. I'm calling. Oh, first, let me tell you, I have come up with a good term for his royal trumpery and his dynasty, Scam-a-lot. How's that sound?
You like it.
Anyway, it seems that there were a lot of election irregularities that were performed with impunity. And is anything being done to investigate what previously happened, not just setting higher standards? And I'll tell you why. I'm particularly concerned about this. I did a search. I have a very unusual family name. And I found my brother in a different state, about 2 states away. Is it possible they've insulted some of the cross-matching lists?
The cross-check stuff. Oh,
yeah, the cross-checking lists.
Yeah, I don't know about the assaulting of lists. I know that we are looking back, and specifically, I think the biggest investigation that would come out of all this would be if we can get an independent investigation or a special prosecutor around a Russian involvement in the elections, because while they may not look at some of the voting issues that we certainly know exist with ending of early voting and photo IDs and the interstate cross-check lists, purging and things like that, and we still are talking about those and introducing bills to address those. I think talking about the Russian involvement in the election helps us to continue to look at that election and what things might have happened. I think that definitely is happening, and hopefully we'll get more and more information that would then dive deeper into some of those other things that really make it harder.
We need a 9/11 commission for that, an independent commission, I think.
And we've been asking for that right now in the Russian involvement, but I agree,
right.
Broader on elections in
general.
general.
I'm talking about the Russian involvement. But Greg Palast is saying that, hundreds of thousands of people were knocked off the voting rolls in the upper Midwest simply because they hadn't voted in the midterm election, which hit Democrats harder than Republicans, and that accounted for some of the Democratic vote suppression. Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't. I'll have to take a look at what Greg put out there. I know that we did have, I think it was, and this is just from guessing, if I remember, it was like 30-some thousand people in Wisconsin due to photo ID that probably didn't have a chance to vote, I think is the number. We know those out there. And I did get real quick, Joe Courtney is the ranking member of the Sea Power and Protection Forces Subcommittee of Armed Services.
Okay, a whole separate. Okay, thank you. Dave in Radcliffe, Kentucky, listening on Sirius XM. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Yeah, hey, Congressman. I had a question about this recent attempt to make post-9/11 GI Bill recipients pay for it. I guess there was a bill introduced where, now they wanted, those recipients to pay $2,000 into it. And they framed it, the Republicans that sponsored it, they framed it as, well, we're doing this to save a program. Now, I mean, it's ridiculous when you look at, the amount of defense spending and, I don't buy the argument that they're trying to save anything. But they use that argument a lot, and it seems effective on people that aren't really, don't really have a stake in it. So I was wondering, what are you guys doing to counteract that argument?
No, we're fighting it. You're completely right. Don't buy it. It's unbelievable. They're going to put $54 billion more into defense. that'll almost exclusively go to all the contractors out there for more equipment, which is just going to a very relatively small amount of people in the end, the profits, as opposed to the people who service in the military. Keith Ellison was telling me his son's in the military making $22,000 a year, and you're going to make him pay now more for those benefits after he served our country and we've made a promise in all this. It's ridiculous that in order to save the program, you've got to make them pay more. We need to take care of the people who are willing to put their lives out there to defend this country, and maybe worry a little bit less about the defense contractors and the others that are really seeing this money. So you're right. Don't buy it. It's unbelievable.
Clyde in Louisville, Kentucky. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Yes. This is Clyde.
Hello, Clyde. We're listening.
I was wanting to ask a question about the increase in minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to a friend of mine that's she's on a fixed income and she's retired, and she was saying that they increased the minimum income, the cost of living would go up so high that she probably wouldn't be able to afford to live off of her retirement, and she'd have to go back to work. Is that true that increase in the minimum wage would raise the cost of living?
No, Clyde, I think a lot of the people who don't want to pay people more are trying to come up with every excuse and subterfuge out there to confuse the issue. And, if a rising tide lifts all boats, if we all do better, when we all do better, you'll have a slight cost of living increases potential, but it's not going to be to the point that it's going to offset the increases. I mean, in general, what we're trying to do is make sure that the average person has more money so that you're not working full-time and living in poverty at what the current rate is, a little over $15,000 a year. The median income is $51,000 in this country. So it's put out there to try to scare people, to try to put us against them as opposed to us with us. And I think we just got to remember that, these people will do anything to keep the money going to the top 1% and 2% in this country. And we can't let them continue to rig the system. That's why we're fighting to raise the minimum wage. And don't forget, I'd love to say 15 and a union. We got to get back to making unions stronger in this country.
Yeah. And one other data point, Clyde, you can share with your concerned friend is the minimum wage was put into place, I believe, in 1935, and it has been raised, I believe, 34 times. I could be wrong on that, on both those numbers, but close. And there has never, and every single time it was raised, Republicans screamed and yelled, this is going to jack up prices and you're going to see inflation and all kinds of disasters. And there has never, ever been an ability to demonstrate an association between raising the minimum wage and prices going up or the cost of living going up. Never. If there was, whenever a Democrat talked about the minimum wage, the Republicans would go, oh my God, remember 1974? We raised the minimum wage and the prices all went up? They would be able to tell you the year, they'd be able to tell you the week, they'd have it memorized. Never happened. So let's put that myth to bed. Forgive my rant, Congressman. This is your hour. Jeff in Houston, Texas, you're on the air.
Good to talk to you there. I was asking you about the ACA Affordable Care Act.
Go for it.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Congressman? Yes. We can hear you.
You can hear me? Yes. I was just asking about that ACA Affordable Care Act and what you're doing to help keep that in place and hopefully get us towards a single payer, if that's an appropriate question.
Congressman?
Yeah. I think we've talked about this a little bit throughout the weeks, but in a little bit today. But, the Republicans are still working on a proposal. From what I understand from the White House, it's going to be good. It's going to be great. People are really loving it. But we don't know what they're quite proposing yet. In the meantime, we know what the issues are with the Affordable Care Act, and we're putting those together because that's what would make more sense. Don't dump 24 million people from having access to health care. Don't take away people's ability, depending what state you live on, to have pre-existing conditions or prescription drugs covered. We want to take what we have that's helped to hold costs down and to get more people access and do more of that. And we know where to do it. I mean, actuarially, not enough healthy people signed up, and we've got to deal with some things like that and a few other issues. And the public option would be extremely helpful in areas, especially where they don't have a lot of choices. So we've got fixes to do it. I don't know if the Republicans are going to go there, but once they get through whatever they're doing to check off the box, they repealed the the Obamacare Affordable Care Act. We've got solutions that would actually solve it.
Dave in Huffman Estates, Illinois. And we only have a minute and a half left until the end of the hour. Dave, a real quick question for Congressman Pocan.
Yeah, Congressman, do you think that with the tariffs on the Canadian lumber, that President Trump is getting back at Canada when they had that grassland co-op situation where it's been affecting like 75 dairy farms in Wisconsin and some of the UP of Michigan farms that sell to the Wisconsin ones after Canada flooded the market with their own milk?
Yeah, Dave, I'll tell you, when it comes to trade, this is part of why, Donald Trump gave a lot of easy answers on trade that helped him win the election, but he hasn't had much in performance. And if you start just doing this kind of policy without a comprehensive policy about what trade should look like, lifting workers' wages, protecting the environment, other standards, it's really haphazard. So while we do have an issue right now with the milk issue in Canada we need to address, I don't know if he's aiming the right direction or he's giving any consistency in what he actually believes about trade enough to provide the answers we need. So once again, the first 100 days, he's been incredibly inconsistent and not performing. This is just one more example. I don't really know what he believes in trade, and I don't think he knows what he believes about trade.
Yeah. The last 15 seconds, Congressman, your thoughts?
This is going to be a big week. I assume we're not going to shut down government, but, let's see what the final proposal is. But seeing both of those tax proposals should show anyone that there's no way this administration or this Congress has their back.
There you go. Congressman Mark Pocan, pocan.house.gov is the website. You can tweet him at Rep. Mark Pocan. Congressman, thanks so much for being with us today.